Hi everybody, I hope you're all doing really well. So today I am back to talk about Style and Substance, edited by Bay Garnett, a collection of collated essays, book and article extracts from various people either in the fashion industry, celebrities with connections to the industry, or simply authors who wrote about very fashionable characters, talking about style and what it means to that particular individual, or the society that they were living in at the time. Contributors include names like Oscar Wilde to Bernardine Evaristo, to Stanley Tucci, to Colette, to Davina McCall. There's all sorts of different people in here. One way that you can distinguish contributions that are original to this collection as opposed to pieces that were taken from other media is that each original contribution ends by answering two questions. The first being, what is the first piece that you remember buying for yourself? And the second being, what piece of clothing would you save in a fire? Probably not saying anything groundbreaking with this statement, but I've never really considered myself to be a fashion girl. I don't think anybody would call me that based on what I wear. One of my most memorable experiences at university was actually in my first year. I was chatting to a girl who lived on my floor, and on the way back to my room she mentioned, oh, by the way, please feel free to borrow clothes from me anytime. And I was ever so slightly taken aback by this because it kind of came out of nowhere, but also because all through childhood, all through my teenage years, I'd never really been able to borrow clothes from people. Not from my sisters, not from my friends. I was always just a little bigger than them, so I was never able to borrow clothes from them. And so I genuinely just didn't know how to react to that. It's just not a situation I've been in before, so I was like, okay, that's nice. I guess in this situation it's good to reciprocate, so I said to her, oh, that's really kind of you, and yeah, feel free to borrow from me whenever you want. And the bit that I remember from this conversation is that as soon as I said that, she kind of looked at me, kind of did one of these, look up and down, and then went, said nothing, and just walked back to her room. So if that's not a ringing endorsement of my style as an 18-year-old, I don't know what else is. I'm not very up on trends. I mean, I do follow a few fashion YouTubers who talk about runway collections and celebrity red carpet. I do find them very fun, but I don't find myself like really taking it all in. I'd love to be able to make clothes, but I can't sew, and knowing my just general capabilities for practical tasks, I don't think I'm ever going to properly learn how to do anything other than darning socks and sewing on a button. But saying all of that, I am somebody who does really like getting dressed up. I enjoy the process of getting ready, putting a face on, putting together an outfit. I like learning more about what clothes suit me, what I like, what like cuts and colours suit me. I've absolutely had a moment with like the kibby body types and the colour seasons. I love all of that kind of thing. I used to spend so many hours of my life as a teenager going in and out of the New Look dressing room, trying on like piles and piles of clothes that I was never going to buy, so the shop assistants must have hated me. But I found it a really valuable experience of just like looking at clothes, even if I wasn't going to buy them, and kind of working out what I liked. Because even if I never bought them, I would have that knowledge for later. I am somebody who loves it when people compliment me on what I'm wearing. I'm somebody who would much rather be overdressed than underdressed. One of my favourite parts of doing amateur dramatics is getting costumes, because once again, I just love dressing up. All the way up to, I remember the last Halloween party that I went to, somebody mentioned, the one thing I can always say for you, Charlotte, is that you always commit to a theme. And yeah, because I can't imagine doing anything else. I love costume dramas. Whenever Bernadette Banner does her like 3-hour long video of like the year in costume dramas, like I am sat there ready and watching. I don't know much about construction of garments, but I love learning about fashion history. I think what had always hampered my realization of how much I do like clothes and style, especially when I was younger, was 1, access, 2, cost, and 3, my body. Especially as a teenager in the late noughties, early 2010s, my body was not considered like the fashionable body. A lot of the shops that I would go into and admire the clothes off just did not make clothes that really suited me. I think the other aspect of it is that I just associated style with people who are cool, and like we know each other, we've met. I am not a cool person, especially the aspect of being cool as being effortless. And like, I have never done a single thing in my life that hasn't involved effort, and especially not overthinking. I mean, like, look at this. I matched what I was wearing to the book. Like, this is not a cool thing to do. I am a try-hard, overthinking person, and I always have been, and I probably always will be. But by reading this book, I've been reminded that there are many stylish people who are also chronic overthinkers, especially when it comes to what they wear. And I just felt very, very seen. This book is split into 5 different sections. Firstly, we have freedom, which include essays such as Harris Reed and Amro Al-Kadi, talking about style and the freedom to express in a gender non-conforming or gender fluid way. To Megan Jane Crabb, talking about style and body positivity. To Sienna Miller, talking about dressing in a comfortable way, style allowing her to dress in a way that feels instinctual, with room to be fancy by choice rather than by necessity. Conversely, the rules section demonstrates how for some, rules can actually be quite freeing in themselves, adding a sense of order and clarity just as much as it can offer restriction. From Zadie Smith talking about the differences between London and New York when it comes to sensibilities around style, to Oscar Wilde's like 10-page diatribe on the fashion rules and regulations of the time that he's writing, which includes this absolute banger of a line: "A fashion is merely a form of ugliness so absolutely unbearable that we have to alter it every 6 months." While this book talks about individuality in style, the section on style tribes talks about the importance of community when it comes to building personal style, whether you imitate what you see or it encourages you to rail against it. Both Sebastian Horsley and Charles Baudelaire talk about the dandy, even though they are writing with almost 200 years removed from each other. Makita Oliver talks about how her Caribbean heritage influenced her West London upbringing, and how she was able to see traces of that when she visited Antigua for the first time in 2021, how her heritage had somehow filtered through without her even realising. The fourth section is colour, which demonstrates how affirming and even powerful wearing the right hue can be. Nikki Lilly talks about the power of her pink hair as somebody who has very visible facial differences as a result of arteriovenous malformation, but her pink hair offers a very visual representation of her mentality, which she describes as an active decision to face the world rather than hide away. Conversely, Olivia Singer's essay is an ode to the ease and simplicity of wearing all black, a colour or absence of colour which allows you both to stand out or to hide away. Finally, the fifth section, dressing up, truly allows the writers to demonstrate the fun and range that dressing can give you. From Sandy Powell talking about costuming for film, though she does not talk about what I consider to be her magnum opus, the Cinderella dress from 2015, to Zainab Jawar talking about the hijab and how she is able to incorporate this very important religious garment into her personal style, no longer feeling that her religion and her sense of style have to clash, but now she's at a point where she can seamlessly blend the two together, and that results in her feeling more like herself. I thought this was a really interesting book. I think it's written as readable and accessible as a book like this could be, though I do wonder if it would A, be picked up, and B, would sway anybody who wasn't already agreeing with what these people are saying. It's kind of preaching to the choir, reaffirming what I think you would already think, rather than trying to convince anybody of the importance of style. I also feel like the weakest aspect of this book was the novel extracts. I would have either wanted to see them swapped out with more essays, or these pieces just swapped out for better books, which have more interesting dynamic characters. But overall, a very fun read. I'm glad that I did pick this up. As I say, I don't know if this is going to have an audience much outside of people who already think a lot about their sense of style, but for someone like myself who thinks about it a lot, probably more than I should, I really enjoyed it. It's also a book that I haven't seen many people talk about at all. I think it only has about 3 ratings on Goodreads at this current moment in time, so it's just nice to talk about something that is a little under the radar. If you have read this, I would love to hear your thoughts. Alternatively, I turn her questions back onto you. What is the first piece of clothing that you remember buying? And what is a piece of clothing that you would save in a fire? I would love to hear from you. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks. Bye.